Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Amritpal Singh. Coming up in the next 1 hour, the 17th edition of the Brics Summit kicks off in Rio de Janeiro. Addressing the plenary session, Prime Minister calls for reforms in voting rights, governance and leadership. Also emphasizes on a multipolar, inclusive world order. Israel sends team to Qatar for Gaza hostage and ceasefire negotiations, but UAE. The first Brics summit was held in Yekaterinburg in Russia in 2009. The partner countries of Brics include Belarus, Bolivia, Kazakhstan, Cuba, Malaysia, Nigeria, Thailand, Uganda and Uzbekistan. And Brics serves as a political and diplomatic coordination forum for countries from the global south and for coordination in most diverse areas. Brazil assumed the Brics chairship on the 1st of January 2025. The theme of Brazil's Brics chairship is strengthening global south cooperation for more inclusive and sustainable governance. Brazil's presidency focuses on two priorities, that's including the global south cooperation and Brics partnership for social, economic and environmental development. Flagship priorities of Brazil's chairship include global health cooperation, trade, investment and finance, climate change and artificial intelligence governance. Promote a global reform of multilateral peace system and security architecture and institutional development. The 17th Brics Summit is underway at Rio. India's role is under the spotlight, from counter-terrorism to trade, with India playing a pivotal role in Brics and bilateral ties with Brazil already gaining steady momentum. DD India exclusively spoke to Ambassador Dinesh Bhatia, who's India's ambassador to Brazil, to discuss New Delhi's key priorities and the state of India-Brazil relations. This is what's at stake at this year's Brics Summit.
By Ambassador Dinesh Bhatia, who is the ambassador of India to Brazil. Thank you so much, sir, for talking to DD India. Sir, we would want to first ask you about the Brics Summit. What are India's priorities in this summit, and what can be expected that India is going to push for in this summit?
As far as Brics Summit is concerned, Prime Minister has participated in all the summits, and our basic agenda since the inception of Brics has been global governance reform, and we will continue with the same agenda in this summit. Brazil is of course the partner in global south. It's a strategic partner of India, and we have a common agenda of global governance reforms.
India has put its very strong stance on counter-terrorism, and after the Pahalgam attack, how do you think India is going to push even stronger this time, or probably make a stronger consensus amidst the member states?
Counter-terrorism is one of our core agenda. As far as Brics is concerned, they will talk about it in some form which I'm not privy to at this point of time. But on bilateral front, I can tell you that between India and Brazil, Brazil has supported us on this issue. And in this visit, we are trying to conclude an MOU on counter-terrorism, which will be another step forward between the two strategic partners.
So, obviously, we'll shift focus to the bilateral that is going to happen between India and Brazil. How do you think, where's the trajectory of the relationship between both the leaders, Prime Minister Modi and President Lula, considering this is Prime Minister Modi's fourth visit this time?
Brazil and India have always been close countries. They have been part of global south, and since 2006 our bilateral relations were elevated to strategic partnership, and of course, there have been several exchange of visits. Prime Minister Modi's first visit out of Indian subcontinent was to Brazil in July of 2014. That shows the closeness of importance of the closeness of relationship between India and Brazil. And the agenda in the meanwhile has amplified so much. It has deepened and broadened between the two countries, from political relationship where we are close partners in various fora. We are talking about trade and investment. The trade between the two countries has gone up to more than $12 billion with the slight trade surplus in favor of India. Then we are also talking about from agricultural research to scientific research to digital partnership, which is a very important agenda currently between India and Brazil.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for speaking to us. So here, as global attention shifts to Brazil with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the BRICS summit, as well as for this landmark bilateral that is going to happen between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Lula, we'll bring to you all the important updates, insights and exclusives from Brazil only for DD India.
An important business gathering is taking shape under the BRICS umbrella with a high-profile Indian business delegation in Brazil. From agribusiness to gems and jewelry to startups, the Indian delegation is scouting key sectors ripe for collaboration. DD India spoke with the delegation in Rio about their expectations from the summit and the bilateral ties between India and Brazil.
By all business people from India. Ma'am, thank you so much for talking to us, and we already have a delegation. What are the expectations? What are we talking about? What is the brainstorming that's going on?
It's really heartening to see that for the Brazilian business delegation and who we've been interacting with, and of course the government officials here are really interested in promoting Brazilian startups. So I think there's a great synergy between Indian startups, Indian investors, legacy companies here and investors and the governments wanting to work on innovation, startups and growing the whole startup ecosystem.
We're also, obviously, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be holding a bilateral with President Lula. What are the expectations of the Indian businessmen that you are expecting that will be one of the outcomes from the meeting?
We see a lot of opportunity because I see some diverse angles also here. Here the natural resources are in plenty. There is a scope for innovation is very high. What attracted me here is how do they use the biofuels? Yeah, they are the leaders in that.
Tariff is 100% there. That once it is reduced, certainly there is a lot of scope between two countries and both will be winner. Only is that CBO, complete build-up unit, should be allowed to basically export here at a slightly cheaper rate.
Economically speaking, what are the expectations from the BRICS?
BRICS is doing a great job by getting people united out here and making people understand what are the opportunities in India, Brazil, what bilateral trade we guys can do together.
We want the primacy of the Indian business. His visit will spur that and will actually give a big fillip and encouragement to all of us to do more.
And DD India explored something very interesting in the heart of Brazil. Thousands of miles away, young Brazilians are learning ancient Indian mantras, sacred chants passed down for centuries in devotion to Indian gods and goddesses. Guided by Indian gurus and music instructors at the Swami Vivekananda Center for Indian Culture established by the ICCR, the students are not just singing, they are embracing a tradition of devotion, discipline and divine connection. Listen in.
They are embracing Indian spirituality, Indian music, Indian mantras and more. And we're joined in by such a group which has been learning this at the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center in Sao Paulo. And we'll talk to them to understand what they're learning. It's been 4-5 years or more than that for a few of you who have been learning these Indian music, mantras and more. What do you have to say about it? What's your inclination?
We are singing mantra about, I think, 3 years and doing this devotional music. And we are very glad to be here to have this opportunity to meet with Narendra Modi and hope our frequencies go to the world with a lot of peace and love. And we're very happy to connect those cultures like India and Brazil. And we have India in our hearts. Everyone. And now it's like see a dream coming true because we sing mantras. It's like an instrument for us, but now we are like living this.
Indian culture has completely transformed my life for the last 10 years, and I'm deeply passionate and devotionally touched by this culture. So like he said, we've never been in this life in India yet, but India is inside of us, and we are feeling deeply honored by this opportunity by the director, Dr. Jyoti. Really, it's an honor to be here sharing this bhakti, this devotional that pulses through us. So yes, this comes from the straight of our hearts to all of the hearts, and it spreads musically, beautifully honoring this sacred ancient culture that is India. And yeah, it's amazing. It's a pleasure to be here. We're very honored. We send blessings to you all. Really love, 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 love.
Would like to sing for us the devotional mantras that you have learned over the years? Anything that's your favorite and you would like to sing for our audience in India?
Jaya Jagadambe Jai Ma, Jaya Jagadambe Ma Durga, Jaya Jagadambe Jai Ma, Jaya Jagadambe Ma Durga, Jaya Jagadambe Jai Ma, Jaya Jagadambe Ma Durga, Ma Durga, Ma Durga, Ma Durga, Ma Durga. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Jai Ma.
How beautifully these people are learning what Indian culture, Indian music, art forms, devotion and spirituality is. Definitely something that transcends boundaries, and this is what we call living bridges between two countries, India and Brazil. With camera person Piyush Verma, this is Mna Dave for DD India from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
And my colleague Mna Dave now joins us live from Rio. Okay, Mna, before we come to what's happening at the Brics summit, where did you find these characters from? That story that we just played, singing Jai Ma Durga or something, some chants.
This is a very here in Brazil. They have been learning these devotional music and mantras and these Sanskrit chanting, for that matter, at the ICCR Swami Vivekananda Center for Indian Culture. And most of them have been learning this from the past 8 to 10 years. Few of them have joined like the past 3-5 years. But the kind of devotion that they have to Indian culture is definitely something that we just saw on our television screens. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also heard them when he arrived in Rio yesterday. And he also congratulated them on their the kind of dedication that they have in terms of adapting to Indian spirituality and Indian culture.
Okay. All right. Let's come to the meat of what's happening, what's been happening since morning. Give us a sense of, before we come to the Prime Minister's intervention, what really is happening at the Brics summit at Rio right now?
Well, there has the first plenary session, Amrit, has as we speak is underway, and we now will have the other session in which the other invited countries will also be joining. We also do understand that the first plenary session was restricted only for full members, and now the other partner countries will also be joining in. So there obviously are important discussions on global governance. Discussions will also take place on artificial intelligence, which is one of the most important aspects that will be discussed. And in my opinion, this is the right time to actually discuss about artificial intelligence, their regulations, policies, and more. And when the Global South, in a sense, is coming together on the Brics platform, be it the partner countries or the full-time members, it is definitely extremely essential at this juncture to discuss technological advancements and AI. Besides that, obviously, there are other issues on the table. And as we did hear from the Prime Minister as well as President Lula, combating terrorism is also something that the countries are discussing. So definitely, there is a lot on agenda. Besides, obviously, climate financing, climate change, that will also be coming up for discussions, as the day unfolds. And obviously, there is also another day tomorrow wherein climate financing, environment, and sustainability will also be discussed.
Okay. All right. You spoke about terrorism being one of the focus areas at this summit. When the Prime Minister was speaking at the session on peace and security, he had this to say on terrorism. He said terrorism has become the most serious challenge for humanity today. Then he brings about talks about the Pahalgam attack. Then he says this attack was a blow not only on India, but on the entire humanity. And condemning terrorism should be our principle and not just convenience. We've seen at various fora, when it comes to terrorism, a lot of lip service is done, but then hardly is there any joint effort to combat terrorism as a collective whole. Do you see that? Do you see that how it's playing out at this conference as well? Or do you see some kind of convergence on putting up a joint front against combating terrorism?
Well, Amrit, this is something that, very clearly, as you said, there are many times we do hear words like terrorism, counter-terrorism, efforts to combat terrorism, cross-border terrorism, on outcomes and declarations. Definitely, sometimes it sounds like lip service. But this time around, what we have been seeing, obviously, the kind of efforts that India has put in the past, specifically, we're talking about in the past 2 months, to ensure that there is a stronger consensus on combating terrorism. When we saw these delegations going across the globe to different countries to voice what stand India has on terrorism and how India has fought back. Besides, what kind of stance that India will take if there is any other terrorist attack that takes place in the country. So this is something that India is very strongly pushing for on bilateral fora, multilateral forum. What we are seeing in the recent past few weeks, or we can say a couple of months. And when we did see that when there was this foreign ministers meeting of the Brics, though there was a chair summary in which clearly the Pahalgam attack was mentioned. It was clearly mentioned that safe havens, people who are financing terrorism, the action should be taken against them. There was also another statement that was made where it said double standards on combating terrorism should also be addressed. So this is also something that is very important, because there are many a times, just for the sake of condemning a terrorist attack, there are entities who do it, but then after that, when it comes to actually taking action against it, there is only lip service. Besides, obviously, the chair summary did also say about how it is very essential to take action against UN proscribed terrorists and the people who are providing safe haven to terrorists. Now, also, we did see that how President Lula today, in his address, in his first intervention at the first plenary session, clearly mentioned the attack in Kashmir. So this time around, I believe in the leaders' declaration, in the outcome, there will be a very strong statement on terrorism, and that is also what India has been constantly pushing for, on all fronts.
Okay, what is the sense on Gaza, the conflict in West Asia? Because the Indian Prime Minister, in his intervention, reiterated the stated stand of India that it does not see war or violence as any answer to finding solutions to the conflict, and he believes it can only be taken through peace efforts, and he sought the support of friendly countries in this regard.
Well, besides, definitely this was something that was told, but also earlier also it was said about that there has to be unhindered humanitarian support that has to go to Gaza. Besides that also, when we're talking about conflicts in different regions, now we are talking about the global south. So when we're talking about global south, we're talking about a balanced world order. We are talking about just, fair, balanced world order. But now there are challenges. Challenges obviously emerge from important the current geopolitical tensions. And also when we did clearly see that President Lula said that the world is ready to invest or put their money in for the military, but they are not military and for that matter the war, but they're not ready to fund for development and growth of developmental projects. So this is something that has clearly been said. Besides, obviously, stand has been very clear in terms of be it Brazil's stance on that there should be dialogue and diplomacy, and this should the war should come to a stop. Obviously, tension should come to a stop. And India's stance has also been the similar for that matter. And definitely, when we're also talking beyond this about priorities, both Brazil and India have similar kind of priorities. And this is one of the important aspects to see when India will be taking the Brics chair. It will have similar priorities and agenda for the Brics as Brazil has. So there are convergences and similarities, and it will definitely be quite visible in the declaration to come.
Okay. The Russian president is not participating. How is that being seen there?
Well, he did participate virtually, and that definitely.
But he didn't travel. He didn't travel to. He participated.
Yes.
Addressed virtually. Yes.
Sergei Lavrov is here, and definitely we have been seeing that the Russian president is not traveling most of the times to such since the war broke out with the conflict with Ukraine. But definitely his participation virtually, Amrit, for that matter, speaks the kind of importance that Brics that Russia attaches to the Brics, and Sergei Lavrov is present here, so definitely there will be talks with him also. He will also be interacting with the Brics, other leaders of the Brics, and that speaks about the kind of importance that Russia has for Brics. And having said that, we definitely do see that Russia has clearly the kind of interests that Russia has in terms of trade, investments in Brics, be it other aspects, especially in terms of trade and economy within the Brics countries. It clearly speaks about the way they take it. And Kazan Brics was also very importantly held in such a manner that clearly shows that the kind of importance that Russia attaches to the Brics.
Okay. Brics currency was something, which had gained momentum in the past few years. Given Donald Trump's opposition to it, it seems to have been at least, if not, completely shunned or put away. It has been put on the back burner. Is that the sense that you get in Rio?
Well, we did speak to the ambassador of Brazil to India about the same or about the Brics currency that was being talked about. But he did clearly say that this is nothing against the dollar. He did also say that this is something that it is about up to the countries that if they want to trade in their local currencies. So there is nothing that is going to happen that there will be an invention of a Brics currency. But if the countries are okay to do trade in their local currencies, so this can be a possibility. So this is what the current, what we get to understand from what we spoke to the ambassador. But having said that, it's nothing against the dollar that the Brics bloc is planning to do.
Okay. What did President Lula stress upon in his inaugural speech, Meghna?
There are many aspects, Amrit. Very importantly, one aspect that President Lula and Prime Minister Modi clearly very firmly aligned on is the UN reforms. Now, President Lula clearly said it's not just the UN reforms, or it's also about the UNSC table to make the UNSC, to make the UN more legitimate, more effective, more democratic. It is very important that they include new permanent members. President Lula said that new important members, permanent members, should be from Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean. And it's about, it's also about the matter of justice, and it's about also ensuring that the UN survives. So clearly, it clearly makes a sense that he said that The UN is almost non-functional at the moment. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also said that there are many technology advancements and everything takes place. Things change, in just a few years, and it's been 8 decades that the UN has not undergone any reforms, and the body which has to make important decisions, solve global situations, is not up to date or with the current. Or probably does not have the style of working or has not undergone reforms in 80 years, is something that is worth thinking about. And the kind of statement that President Lula has made clearly shows that the Global South is in no mood to have a lot of patience for this.
Okay. Megha, the Prime Minister also spoke about, change in voting patterns, and he said not just the Security Council. Now, the other institutions like, say, the World Bank, the other developmental banks, and the WTO also need to have a kind of reforms that an organization like the Brics or an association like the Brics is seeing.
Yes, Prime Minister did speak about how these changes need to be brought in. He clearly said that the Global South has often been a victim of double standards. Whether it is about development, distribution of resources, security-related issues, interests of the Global South have not been given priority. And what the Global South has got is just token gestures. So he has also clearly said that on issues like climate finance, sustainable development, the technology access, so what the Global South has got, no representation and just token gestures. So very clearly, a very firm point, a very concrete statement made by the Prime Minister. And he also said that the 2/3 of humanity is not getting adequate representation, obviously because of the institutions that have been formed in the 20th century. And it's not, now it's not about just representation, it's also about effectiveness. Because the kind of solutions, the solutions that you are giving to the people, they are not being represented, or their voices are not being heard, or they are not being given adequate representation. So obviously, the Global South being victim of double standards, be it about development, distribution of resources, security-related issues, things are not being given priority. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi clearly voicing Global South concerns here, talking about sustainable development and climate finance, and clearly the kind of funding that the inadequate funding that is being given, token gestures that are being made. So very important points that the Prime Minister has raised at his intervention in the first plenary.
Okay, while countries like India and Brazil are pushing for reform at the Security Council, President Lula says need to include new permanent members in the UN Security Council. There are at least two Security Council members at the Brics, Russia and China. How do they look at this?
Well, it's not just about them being in the Brics, but it's also about what the the entities, the countries at the Brics want for themselves as well. It's not that the Brics wants to be at the table, but it's about what people as a country want in terms of equal representation. So this is something that obviously Brazil has been very supportive of India being at the table. There have been such talks that there has to be equal representation in the UNSC. So it's not about what maybe Russia or maybe China want for that matter, but it's what India wants for itself at the UNSC, or what Brazil wants for itself at the UNSC. Not looking at BRICS as a whole, but looking at what how much of how much of demography they represent, what region they represent, and what kind of representation is required, so that the UNSC looks or the UNSC works as more inclusive and more effective.
Okay. What are the divergences that you are seeing? There are a lot of convergences that we've been speaking about. What are the divergences that you are seeing play out at in Rio within the BRICS grouping?
Yes, we currently what we see, there are obviously, we spoke about the convergences in terms of combating terrorism, convergences, but we'll have to see what happens in the trade sector. what kind of convergences or what kind of declaration comes out, especially in terms of in the economic front. Climate financing is also something to look forward to. The kind of financing that is required. Besides, obviously, developmental initiatives within the BRICS countries is something also that has to be seen. What the leaders have been talking about and what kind of outcome comes in the declaration. These are some of the important broader areas where we'll have to see what have the discussions been and what kind of declaration comes out. It's not just about trade, but also logistics on the logistical front. Obviously as we were talking about not the BRICS currency, but is there any talks about trade in local currency within the BRICS countries? This is all something that has to be will be seen if there is anything in the outcome, and we'll also get to know specifically in terms of the trade, because now we have new members. So it will be more essential to understand that when there are more players in the picture, more countries in the bloc, we'll have to see what kind of convergences or divergences appear in the economic sector.
What is your sense, Meghna, before I let go of you? Because both Iran and Russia are there at the table now. So what is your sense that once the Rio Declaration comes out, what kind of formulation or what kind of language could we see both on the conflict in West Asia and the Ukraine-Russia conflict?
Yes, that will be very interesting to see what will be the language that will be used and how will a consensus be achieved on the outcome. Because it is obviously the situation, the tensions in Iran, and then we have the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Every country has its stand, but what we see within as a grouping, BRICS has clearly time and again said that dialogue and diplomacy is the way forward. India has also maintained the stand that dialogue and diplomacy is the way forward. He has talked about that there should be the war should stop. There has been such, obviously there has been statements that have been made, but will there be a consensus reached to ensure that there is this outcome on this? We'll definitely have to see as the day unfolds.
All right. Mna Dave, many thanks for joining us for the moment. We'll keep coming back to you. Thank you very much. And still to come up on DD India NewsHour, we'll take an expert on the significance of the 17th edition of BRICS Summit, issues on the agenda and India's expectation from the summit on the other side.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Near the heart of India, a land filled with surprises. In the mighty force of your waters, you hold the deepest secrets that take us back in time. When it's said that the gods walk this land, this is where we feel the warmth of your faces. See hands that mold life. While embracing change, you grow. In you is the land that gives, creates, nurtures, grows, and builds. It's all in you. Come, experience Chhattisgarh.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Amritpal Singh. Let's take a look at the headlines we're following at this hour. The 17th edition of the Brics Summit kicks off in Rio de Janeiro. Addressing the plenary session, Prime Minister calls for reforms in voting rights, governance and leadership. Also emphasizes on a multipolar, inclusive world order. Israel sends team to Qatar for Gaza hostage and ceasefire negotiations, but rejects Hamas's demands to change ceasefire proposal. Netanyahu to meet US President Donald Trump in Washington on Monday. Billionaire Elon Musk launches a new political party in the United States, calls it America Party, says America needs fresh leadership. Texas floods leave at least 59 dead, 27 girls missing as rescuers search a devastated landscape. And India win the Birmingham Test by beating England by 336 runs. India's real GDP grew by 6.5% in 2024-25 despite the global uncertainties. The country's consumer price index-based inflation hit the lowest since February 2019. More details in this report.
India continues to strengthen its position as the world's fastest growing major economy, expanding steadily despite global uncertainties. The Reserve Bank of India projects this robust momentum to continue into 2025-26, underscoring the country's economic resilience and balanced growth across sectors, fueled by solid domestic demand, easing inflation, and rising exports. Real GDP grew by 6.5% in 2024-25, reflecting healthy underlying economic activity after adjusting for inflation. Other projections also remain optimistic, with the United Nations forecasting growth of 6.3% this year and 6.4% next year, while the Confederation of Indian Industry places its estimate between 6.4 and 6.7%. In 2014-15, the GDP at current prices was 106.57 lakh crore rupees. It's expected to rise to over 331.03 lakh crore rupees in 2024-25, nearly tripling in 10 years. Inflation based on the consumer price index stood at 2.82%, the lowest since February 2019. The number of retail investors surged from 4.9 crore in 2019 to 13.2 crore by the end of 2024. Foreign direct investment inflows reached a provisional $81.04 billion in fiscal year 2024-25, marking a 14% rise from the previous year. Foreign exchange reserves hit a record $697.9 billion as of June 20, 2025. The current account balance posted a surplus of $13.5 billion in Q4 of 2024-25 compared to $4.6 billion in the same quarter previous year. Total exports soared to a new high of $824.9 billion in 2024-25, growing 6.01% from $778.1 billion in 2023-24. Key indicators such as record foreign exchange reserves, a manageable current account deficit, and increasing foreign investment reflect growing global trust in India's long-term prospects. Bureau Report, DD India.
And let me bring you this breaking news right now that the Brics Declaration is out. The Rio Declaration has just been put out at the Brics Summit. Let me quickly read what I can make of it because it's just come in. It says One, it has condemned the Pahalgam attack, strongly condemned the terrorist attack in Pahalgam, and has asked for united action against all forms of terrorism. If I can read this. We express strong condemnation of any acts of terrorism as criminal and unjustifiable, regardless of their motivation, whenever, wherever, and by whomsoever committed. We condemn in the strongest terms the terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir on the 22nd of April 2025, during which 26 people were killed and many more injured. We reaffirm our commitment to combating terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, including cross-border movement of terrorists, terrorism financing, and safe havens. We reiterate that terrorism should not be associated with any religion, nationality, civilization, or ethnic group, and that all those involved in terrorist activities and their support must be held accountable, and brought to justice in accordance with relevant national and international law. We urge to ensure zero tolerance for terrorism and reject the double standards in countering terrorism. We emphasize the primary responsibility of the states in combating terrorism and global efforts to counter terrorism. All right, so it's a long statement on that, but important thing that is condemned and called for a united action. All right, and also, it has once again reiterated support for a comprehensive reform of the United Nations, including its Security Council, to make it what it calls more democratic, representative, effective, efficient, and increase the representation of developing countries in the Council's membership. So basically, the Global South asserting itself at Brics, saying that expand the Security Council, put at the heart of the narrative, the voice and the aspirations of the developing countries or the Global South, countries from Africa, Asia, and Latin America. We know Brazil and India have been at the forefront of pushing for such reforms. Okay. I'm told I'm joined by a former senior diplomat, SR Tayal. Thank you, sir, for joining us. But Ambassador Tayal, can I come to you in a bit? Let me just go across to my colleague Mna Dave in Rio. Mna, the declaration is just out. I have read two aspects that I could see at a cursory glance. Could you share what else of significance does the Brics declaration talk about?
Yes, Amit, this is about a 30-page declaration, so we are also going through the finer details. But before that, just looking at a glance, we did clearly see that condemnation in strong terms to the terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir. Brics has reaffirmed commitment to combating terrorism in all forms and manifestations, including cross-border movement of terrorist financing and safe havens. As we were speaking just a while ago, Brics has also reiterated that terrorism should not be associated to any religion, nationality, civilization, or ethnic group, and all involved.
But I think more important, Mna, is that it mentions cross-border terrorism very clearly. Cross-border movement of terrorists. Yes. And providing and taking action against providing safe havens to terrorists.
Yes, absolutely. So clear mention of it indirectly indicates, or in a sense now we can clearly say that it directly indicates a kind of action that should be taken against, calls out to those people who are enabling this cross-border movement of terrorists, also providing safe haven to terrorists, and also Brics has clearly reiterated that terrorism should not be associated with any religion, nationality, civilization, or ethnic group, and all who are involved in terrorist activities and their support must be held accountable. So Brics has also urged to ensure zero tolerance for terrorism
and reject double standards in countering terrorism. As we were just talking a while ago, that double standards of countering terrorism should also be not tolerated. So clearly, in very strong terms, there is a condemnation on the terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir. Now, we also do see, as I was speaking to you about, the currency. So local trade, as I was just reading about the enabling of local trade, we do also see some finer details. I'll get back to you once I am able to,
make
get
sense
through
of the declaration.
the bit on local trade.
All right. So, Meghna, I'll do one thing. I'll let go of you and I'll try and reconnect you with you in a little bit. Just go through the details and then we'll talk about that because it's just come in. Thank you, Meghna, for joining for the moment. Let me go over to SR Tayal. Ambassador Tayal, what do you make of, it's still, it's a 30-page long document, but what, as I said, at the cursory look I could make of, and what my colleague was also talking about, two things it's spoken about. One, condemning terrorism, including cross-border terrorism, and fixing responsibility of the states, including states which provide safe haven to these terrorists, and saying that there should be a united front against that, a united effort against that. How do you read this?
Very strong para against terrorism, which shows the resolve of all the 10 members to fight terrorism. But the point to note here is that Iran, China, and Russia, who are members of Brics, are also members of SCO. And just about 10 days back, when the Raksha Mantri, our Raksha Mantri was there, the defense ministers meeting of SCO in China.
Right.
On this issue, there was no mention of Pahalgam. And our Honorable Raksha Mantri refused to sign that declaration, and the declaration was not adopted.
Yeah.
So this is a interesting nuance, because Pakistan was there. And China, as a host, deferred to Pakistan and did not include Pahalgam. So this is to be noted and carefully examined.
This was in Beijing, China, right? This was in Beijing.
That was, yes, that was in China.
Right.
The SCO meeting, next meeting, Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit is in China. So the preparatory meetings at the level of Raksha Mantri or Foreign Minister are also being held in China. But
so why this change of stance? Because it's a very interesting point that you bring up. Was it because Pakistan was at the table in Beijing and was able to prevail upon its friend China? And here it was the Brazilian presidency which is more congenial with India. Could it be attributed to that? But despite that, I mean, the presidency has a role, but finally all members need to agree to put the language, because all diplomats negotiate that document of the joint declaration. So the Chinese would have been there very well.
Yeah, so China has agreed for this formulation of very strong condemnation in strongest terms of the Pahalgam terror attack. I think is a very welcome development, and it should be noted carefully by all of us. And of course, I feel that this BRICS summit is being held in very difficult times. The whole idea of BRICS emerged in Ekaterinburg in 2009 to have some kind of a pressure group within G20, because G7 used to come with their own policies and their own formulations and their own ideas. And after this very sudden and large expansion of BRICS in Johannesburg 2 years ago, from 5 to 10, actually 11, one has not joined, and Argentina did not join. So BRICS has to find a new purpose. Initially it started with the biggest emerging economies and all of that. Then the pressure group within G20. But now with countries like Iran, Ethiopia, etc., what is really the purpose of BRICS?
No, but then
is it
no, Ambassador, I see your point, Ambassador Tayal, but there are, of course, there are divergences, and it is moving ahead from why it was formed, but it is emerging as a collective or a grouping of the global south, another grouping of the global south which is pushing its agenda, because the joint declaration also calls for reforms and expansion of the UN Security Council, including countries from developing countries from Latin America, from Africa, from Asia. So clearly saying that put at the heart of the decision-making debate the concerns, aspirations, wants, needs of the global south or the developing world. So BRICS is becoming a voice for that forum, isn't it?
Certainly it is becoming a voice for the global south. But again, as a person from India, one needs to note that the global south is not united about what should be the nature of the reform in UN Security Council. At least what you have read out, there is no mention of any increase in the number of permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, because a very large number of global south wants increase only in non-permanent members of the Security Council. So yes, it's a very good statement. It is an aspirational statement, but it is very diffuse statement. It does not give any clear picture of what the global south wants to emerge from a reformed Security Council. So, you see, we as analysts have to analyze a little more carefully.
No. Sir, may I
sir, India's candidature for permanent member of UN Security Council.
Sir,
frankly, I don't think.
Ambassador, may I stop you for a moment here and read from the statement on the reform part of the Security Council. It says, recognizing the 2023 Johannesburg Leaders' Declaration, we reiterate our support for a comprehensive reform of the UN, including its Security Council, with a view of making it more democratic, representative, effective, efficient, etc., to increase the representation of the developing countries in the Council's membership, so that it can adequately respond to prevailing global challenges and support legitimate aspirations of emerging and developing countries from Africa, Asia and Latin America, including BRICS countries, to play a greater role. So it is calling for expansion of the Security Council and saying increase its numbers, get the developing world in the Council.
Correct. So this is aspirational. This reflects the will of the entire global south. But the point I am trying to make is that it does not specifically mention increase in the permanent members of the UN Security Council, which is India very, very
yes, you are right. It does not talk about permanent members. It just says reform of the Security Council. Okay. Yes, valid point. Oh, so you're saying that of course, in the BRICS, sitting at the table is both two permanent members, China and Russia. So those at the table, why would they want to open it for one can understand those not at the table wanting to get in, but why would those at the table want to broad base this?
So it is a good aspirational statement, but frankly, it does not advance India's cause for a permanent membership of the Security Council. That is my assessment. But in any case, it's a distant dream, because the African countries, which are now 54, they have OAU, the African Union has not taken a clear stand on what should be the nature of the reformed UN Security Council. So this is a distant dream. I think we should keep plugging on it. But G20 and the BRICS, the origin was for economic causes, economic grounds. What are the economic agenda? And there, the whole scenario now, if we say about climate finance or more ODA or more investment in the global south, now that NATO countries, 30 plus, who are mostly rich countries, have to increase their own defense budget to 5%, then where is the money left for any climate finance? One can issue lots of statements from Brics, but the global environment at present is not conducive to a spirit of give and take between the rich and not so rich. And also strategically, the kind of conflicts which are going on, might is right, is totally marginalized. The environment is very difficult for any kind of global cooperation between North and South. That is the point I'm trying to make.
A valid point there. Ambassador Dayal, many thanks for joining us at this late hour, taking out time for us. Thank you very much and lending us your insights. That's it for the moment from me. Thanks for watching. We'll keep bringing you updates. Keep watching DD India.